infertile, divorced, failure. Those 3 words filled the white screen behind my sister's wedding cake while 186 guests sat under crystal chandeliers, pretending they were not witnessing a public execution. The ballroom smelled like gardenias, buttercream frosting, and the expensive floor wax the Riverbend Club used before every weekend event. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Champagne bubbles ticked softly inside thin glass flutes. My father smiled. He lifted his glass as if the humiliation of his oldest daughter were just another toast on the program. My mother sat beside him in pale blue silk, slowly turning her diamond bracelet around her wrist. My sister, the bride, leaned toward the microphone with a smile so sweet it made my teeth hurt. "Don't feel bad for her," Kelsey said. "Meredith is used to disappointment." A few people laughed because people will laugh at cruelty when it wears a tuxedo and comes with an open bar. Others looked at the floor, suddenly fascinated by their shoes, their napkins, their folded hands. My new brother-in-law looked confused, then uncomfortable, then very still. I did not cry. I sat at table 12 in a plain charcoal dress, my phone resting face down beside the salad fork, and watched the family that had spent 17 years calling me unstable reveal exactly who they were. My father, Grant Cole, believed shame was a tool. My mother, Elaine, believed silence was elegance. Kelsey believed being loved by them meant she had won something. They were all wrong. The slideshow moved to the next image. An old photo of me at 18, hair uneven from a haircut I had given myself in a gas station bathroom, eyes hollow from sleeping in my car. Across my face, in red block letters, appeared one word: drop out. The room made that soft animal sound crowds make when they know something has gone too far, but no one wants to be the first moral person standing. My father leaned back, pleased. My mother dabbed at the corner of her mouth with a linen napkin. I picked up my phone. The message window had been open for 23 minutes. One contact, one word already typed. I had promised myself that if they showed even 1 ounce of mercy, I would close the phone, leave quietly, and let the night belong to Kelsey. But Mercy had never lived in my parents' house. It had only visited occasionally, wearing my grandmother's perfume. I pressed send. Begin! 3 seconds later, the projector froze. The music cut off in the middle of a bright violin run. A speaker popped once, sharp as a slap, and the ballroom fell so silent I could hear ice shift in my mother's glass. Then the screen went black. To understand why one text message destroyed a wedding, exposed a real estate fraud, and ended my family's carefully polished reputation in under 11 minutes, you need to know what happened 4 weeks earlier. It started on a Wednesday night at 10:47 p.m. in my office in Raleigh, North Carolina, while rain tapped the windows like fingernails. I was reviewing elevation drawings for the restoration of the Wake County Probate Courthouse, a building most people drove past without noticing. I noticed everything: cracked limestone above the western arch, water damage behind the clerestory windows, a support beam installed 6 inches off the original 1928 plan. Buildings tell the truth. My phone buzzed beside a cold cup of coffee that tasted like burnt paper. The number was unfamiliar, but local to my hometown, New Bern. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then, some instinct, old and unpleasant, made me answer. "Is this Meredith Cole?" a woman asked. "Yes." "My name is Hannah Price. I'm a night nurse at Stillwater Grove Care Center. Your grandmother asked me to call you." The pencil in my hand stopped moving. My grandmother, Lillian Cole, was 86 years old, small as a sparrow, and stronger than any person I had ever known. She was the only member of my family who loved me without invoices attached. 2 years earlier, after I visited her without my father's permission, my name vanished from her approved visitor list the next morning. "Is she okay?" I asked. "She's stable," Hannah said, "but she is scheduled for heart valve surgery on the 17th. She wanted you to know." I closed my eyes. The office smelled of toner, coffee, and old blueprints. The heat clicked once overhead, then went quiet. "Can I see her?" Hannah hesitated. There are pauses that answer before words do. "Your father told her you may visit," she said carefully, "but only after you attend your sister's wedding." Of course. There was always a condition, always a gate, always my father standing beside it with the key in his pocket, smiling like a reasonable man. Grant Cole never gave love freely because free things could not be used to control people. "There's something else," Hannah said. I sat up straighter. "Your grandmother said to bring the red folder. She said you would know which one." My blood went cold. I did know. 17 years earlier, on my 16th birthday, Lillian had given me 2.14 acres of land outside New Bern, a quiet parcel bordered by Blackwater Creek and 3 long rows of pines. The deed had been recorded legally at Craven County Register of Deeds on April 3rd at 9:12 a.m. She had told me in her soft, tobacco country voice, "A girl needs one thing nobody can threaten to take away." My father tried anyway. When I was 18, he slid transfer papers across our kitchen table and told me to sign. He needed the parcel for a luxury development he called Bellwether Landing. His company had options on every surrounding lot except mine. Without that center strip, the access road would not meet county fire code. Without the access road, the development could not be approved. I said no. 3 days later, the college fund he had bragged about for years disappeared. 8 days later, he told me if I walked out the front door, I should never walk back in. My mother sat at the island stirring tea she had no intention of drinking. Kelsey, 14 at the time, watched from the staircase with the expression of someone learning power by observation. I left with $43, a duffel bag, and a copy of my birth certificate. By sunrise, my father had told half the town I had run away because I was troubled. By the weekend, the story had grown legs. I had dropped out, stolen money, broken my mother's heart, embarrassed a good family. People believed him because men like Grant Cole do not look like liars. They look like bank board members and charity donors. That was the first lie. There were more. I slept in my car behind a 24-hour laundromat for 12 nights. I worked breakfast shifts at a diner, evening shifts at a pharmacy, and weekend cleanup at a construction company where the foreman let me sort scrap lumber because I could read measurements faster than his crew. I earned my GED, then an associate degree, then a scholarship to North Carolina State. Nobody from my family came to my graduation. At 26, I married a man named Daniel Price because he smiled gently and asked before touching my hand. Within 18 months, he controlled my bank account, my friends, my clothes, and the password to my email. It took me 3 years to leave him. The divorce cost $28,600, 1 molar from grinding my teeth at night, and the last little fantasy that being chosen meant being safe. At 31, a doctor told me pregnancy was not medically likely. Kelsey learned about it within a week. That was how my family worked. Private pain traveled through them faster than good news. Good news threatened the story. Pain fed it. By 35, I was no one's cautionary tale. I was a licensed architect, senior project lead at Merritt and Vale Restoration, and the woman trusted to repair historic buildings because I knew what hidden damage looked like. I owned a townhouse with a blue door. I paid my taxes quarterly. My emergency fund had $41,820 in it on the night Hannah called. Still, one phone call from home made my hand shake. After we hung up, I unlocked the small fireproof safe beneath my drafting table. Inside were my passport, divorce decree, insurance papers, and a red legal folder bound with an old brass clip. I opened it carefully. The original deed was still there, along with the notarized gift letter from Lillian, the tax receipts I had paid every year, and a handwritten note in her slanted script. Never let them make you smaller to fit inside their lie. The next morning, I carried the folder to work in a canvas tote and walked into Owen Reed's office at 7:18 a.m. Owen was my closest friend, our firm's preservation engineer, and the kind of man who could remain calm during a ceiling collapse but lose patience with a printer jam. He looked up from a spreadsheet and frowned. "You have the courthouse face," he said. "What face?" "The one you make when a building has been insulted." I shut his door. Then I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. That was one of Owen's gifts. He did not rescue people while they were still explaining the fire. He waited until he knew where the exits were. When I finished, he tapped the red folder once. "If you go," he said, "you go documented." I know. No hoping they behave. No trusting verbal agreements. No walking into a ballroom with only your dignity and address. I said I know. He leaned back. Then let me help. That was how the audit began. For the next 13 days, we collected what my father had always feared most: verifiable facts. Owen pulled county planning records, stormwater applications, and preliminary site maps for Bellwether Landing. I requested certified copies of every deed transfer involving the surrounding parcels. My attorney, Marla Benton, ran a title search that returned at 2:06 p.m. on a Friday with the sentence that changed everything. No transfer out of Meredith Ann Cole located. My land was still mine. But my father's current investor packet claimed otherwise. Bellwether Landing Phase 2 showed my 2.14 acres listed under Cole Development Group as Secured Family-Owned Access Parcel. There was a site plan stamped with my forged initials. There was a financing summary submitted to Ashford Heritage Capital, claiming full site control. There was also a tax deduction from 5 years earlier, in which my father appeared to have written off improvement costs on land he did not own. That was not family drama anymore. That was fraud. I remember the smell of Marla's office that afternoon. Lemon polish, printer heat, and the peppermint candy she kept in a blue bowl near the reception desk. She spread the documents across her conference table, while rain streaked the glass behind her. Her paralegal printed duplicates in the next room, each page emerging with a warm, mechanical sigh. "Meredith," Marla said, "did you sign any authorization for your father to represent this parcel?" "No." "Did you approve use of your initials on planning documents?" "No." "Did you receive any compensation, lease payment, option fee, or partnership distribution?" "No." She removed her glasses. "Then your father has a serious problem." I thought I would feel vindicated. Instead, I felt tired in a way sleep could not fix. It is exhausting when reality finally proves you were not crazy. It means you were simply alone with the truth for too long. We made copies: certified deed, tax receipts, planning maps, investor packet, screenshot of the forged initials, email headers from a consultant who had mistakenly copied my old college account when searching for Cole approval. The IP address on 2 electronic submissions resolved to my father's office network: 172.16.44.19, registered internally to Cole Development Group's conference room scanner. Owen backed everything up to 3 places: a cloud folder, a USB drive, 1 encrypted hard drive in his safe. Then we prepared the counter slideshow. I did not want theatrics. I wanted insurance. If my family behaved, it would never be used. If they tried to turn my private suffering into entertainment, the truth would answer them in the same room. Owen built the file quietly, cleanly, without cruelty. Graduation photo, license verification, awards, project list, deed, site map, timeline. Every slide was factual. Every claim had a document behind it. No insults, no jokes, no raised voices, just load-bearing truth. 3 weeks before the wedding, my father summoned me to dinner. He did not invite. He summoned. The Cole house looked exactly the same as it had when I left. White columns, trimmed boxwoods, brass porch lanterns polished bright enough to reflect a stranger's face. Inside, the air smelled of roast beef, furniture oil, and my mother's gardenia perfume. The grandfather clock in the hall ticked with the same smug patience. Elaine opened the door and looked me up and down. "You look severe," she said. "Hello, Mother." "That color drains you." "Good to see you, too." My father waited in the dining room at the head of the table, where he had always sat as if the chair were an elected office. Kelsey arrived 28 minutes late, wearing a cream sweater, a diamond bracelet, and the glowing satisfaction of a woman who had never been told no by anyone who mattered to her. Dinner lasted 46 minutes. My father asked what I was doing these days. Historic restoration, I said. So decorating old buildings. Structural preservation. He waved one hand. Same difference. My mother asked if I was seeing anyone, then apologized in a tone that meant she was not sorry. Kelsey spent 15 minutes describing the wedding florist and another 11 explaining why the Ashford family was very selective about who appeared in photographs. She said it gently, which made it worse. After dessert, she followed me into the hallway. "I need you to wear this," she said, holding out a garment bag. Inside was a taupe dress 2 sizes too large, shapeless, long-sleeved, and designed for invisibility. "No," I said. Her smile tightened. "Meredith, this isn't about you. Carter's family is important. Daddy has been working on something with them for months. We need everything to look stable." Stable. That was their favorite word for obedient. My father joined us at the front door and placed one heavy hand on my shoulder. His wedding ring pressed into my collarbone. "Attend. Smile. Don't create a scene. Then I'll allow you one visit with your grandmother." "Allow," I repeated. His eyes hardened. "Do not test me." I looked at him for 3 seconds longer than he liked. Then I smiled. "I wouldn't dream of it." False surrender has a taste. Metallic, mostly, like biting your tongue and pretending the blood is wine. On the morning of the wedding, I drove to New Bern with the red folder on the passenger seat and Owen following 40 minutes behind in his truck. The sky was washed gray, the highway wet from dawn rain. My phone buzzed twice with messages from Hannah. "Your grandmother is awake. She says wear your own dress." I laughed so suddenly I almost missed my exit. The Riverbend Club sat along the water with a lawn too green for February and windows tall enough to make ordinary people feel underdressed. Valets in black coats moved between cars. The entry smelled of roses, candle smoke, and money. Everything gleamed. My family loved gleaming things. I checked into my hotel at 2:14 p.m., changed into the charcoal dress I had chosen, and placed the red folder inside a slim black portfolio. At 4:30, Owen texted from the venue's service entrance. "I'm in position." He had not hacked anything. We were not criminals. Kelsey had hired the same AV vendor who handled 2 of our firm's donor events, and Owen knew the technician, a man named Luis, who cared more about clean file formats than family politics. Owen simply provided a backup USB drive labeled Kelsey Carter Final Slides, in case the original file corrupted. At 5:52, I entered the ballroom. No one at my family table stood. My mother smiled without warmth. My father checked his watch. Kelsey saw me from across the room, looked at my dress, then looked away as if eye contact might validate my existence. The ceremony was beautiful in the way expensive things can be beautiful without being sincere. White flowers. String quartet. Carter Ashford sang his vows with a nervous crack in his voice. Kelsey glowing under lights chosen specifically to flatter her. For almost an hour, nothing happened. Then the reception began. Toasts came first. Carter's father, Thomas Ashford, spoke about legacy, responsibility, and building things that outlast ego. I noticed my father listening too intently. Thomas controlled Ashford Heritage Capital, the private investment group my father had courted for Bellwether Landing. Beside him sat his wife, Margaret Ashford, founder of the Ashford Trust for Historic Places. Margaret looked familiar. I could not place her at first. Then she walked past my table, glanced at my name card, and paused for half a second. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough for me. At 8:09 p.m., the lights dimmed. The slideshow began. Baby pictures, school portraits, family vacations in Cape Cod and Aspen, Kelsey in every frame, shining like the chosen center of gravity. I appeared nowhere. Not as a child, not as a sister, not even by accident in the corner of a photograph. Then the music changed. A playful piano tune bounced through the speakers. My father lifted his glass before the first slide appeared. My mother lowered her chin, already smiling. The screen read, "Let's meet the rest of the family." My phone was in my hand before the first laugh. There I was at 18, standing beside my old car. Drop out. A few guests chuckled. The next slide showed my courthouse divorce record, cropped to reveal my name. Divorced. More laughter. The third slide showed a blurry photo of me leaving the diner where I once worked. Broke. My stomach did not twist. My heart did not race. Something quieter happened. The last soft place inside me closed its door. Then came the final slide. A cartoon cradle, a red X. One word. Infertile. That was when Kelsey took the microphone. "Don't laugh too hard," she said. "She might actually cry." My father lifted his glass. "Just a joke, sweetheart." My mother smiled. I pressed send. "Begin!" The projector froze. The music died, the screen went black, and for one strange second, the only sound in the ballroom was the soft hiss of the espresso machine at the dessert bar. Kelsey frowned. "What happened?" At the AV table, Luis removed one USB drive and inserted another. The screen lit up again. The real Meredith Cole. My father stood so fast his chair struck the floor behind him. "Turn that off!" No one moved. The first slide appeared, my college graduation photo. No one came. I graduated anyway. Whispers moved through the ballroom like wind through dry leaves. Second slide, my architecture license. Licensed architect, North Carolina Board, Certificate 51482. Third slide, award photo from the State Preservation Council. Senior Restoration Architect, Wake County Probate Courthouse, Ashford Trust Consultant. Margaret Ashford slowly turned in her chair. Now I remembered her. She had approved my courthouse proposal 3 months earlier. The next slide showed a clean timeline. College fund revoked, eviction, GED, scholarship, degree, license, divorce decree, medical diagnosis. No drama, no adjectives, just dates. Facts do not shout. They don't have to. I stood. My father walked toward me with the controlled fury of a man unused to public resistance. His shoes made hard little clicks against the polished floor. When he reached my table, he lowered his voice. "Sit down." I didn't. "End this now, or you will never see Lillian again." There it was. The old weapon, the locked door, the leash. I opened the black portfolio and removed the red folder. "You don't get to use Grandma anymore." For the first time in my life, I saw fear move behind my father's eyes before pride covered it. Carter stood. "Let her speak." Kelsey grabbed his sleeve. "Carter, this is insane!" He pulled gently away. "No, what was insane was putting her medical history on a screen." The room changed then. You could feel it. Power moved, not dramatically but decisively, the way a cracked beam shifts before a ceiling gives way. My mother stood. "Meredith, please. This is a family matter." I looked at her. "You made it public when you turned my pain into entertainment." Nobody laughed now. I stepped into the open space between the tables. My hands were steady. The red folder rested against my palm, warm from the lights. "I did not drop out," I said. "My father cut off my tuition because I refused to sign over land my grandmother legally gave me when I was 16. Gasps. "I did not run away. I was told not to come back." Silence. "I was not broke because I was lazy. I was 18, homeless, and working 2 jobs because my family chose reputation over truth." My sister's face had gone white beneath her makeup. I turned toward the screen. "My divorce was not a joke. My infertility is not a joke. And if you needed to humiliate me to feel loved on your wedding day, Kelsey, then you were never as secure as they told you you were." Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Then Margaret Ashford stood. She walked across the ballroom with the calm of a woman who had fired men wealthier than my father before breakfast. She stopped beside me and looked at the screen. "Meredith Cole," she said. "You're the architect leading our courthouse restoration." "Yes, ma'am." My father's expression collapsed by 1 degree. Not enough for everyone to see, enough for me. Margaret turned to him. Grant, you told my husband your oldest daughter was unstable and estranged for reasons you preferred not to discuss. He swallowed. This is complicated. No, she said. It appears to be very simple. Thomas Ashford stood next. Grant, is this the same daughter whose parcel is listed in your Bellwether Landing Control summary? The ballroom went still in a different way. Business silence. Courtroom silence. I opened the red folder and removed the certified deed. The paper made a soft, clean sound as I unfolded it. Parcel 07-118-4B, I said. 2.14 acres on Blackwater Creek. Recorded April 3, 2007 at 9:12 a.m. Owner, Meredith Ann Cole. No transfer recorded. No option agreement. No lease. No development authorization. My father stared at the deed as if it were a snake. I placed the next page on the table. This is the investor packet Cole Development Group submitted to Ashford Heritage Capital. It lists the parcel as secured. Another page. This is the site plan with my forged initials. Another. This is the tax filing where improvement expenses were deducted against a parcel the company did not own. No one moved. Even the servers stopped at the walls, silver trays held perfectly still. Thomas Ashford picked up the site plan. His face hardened. Margaret looked at my father with a coldness I almost admired. Grant, Thomas said, did you misrepresent site control to our office? My father tried the smile first. It failed. Thomas, weddings are emotional. Meredith has always had issues with perspective. I removed the last page. The electronic submission came from your office scanner. Internal IP 172.16.44.19. Time-stamped October 11th, 6:32 p.m. Your assistant had gone home at 5:10. Security logs show your keycard entered the suite at 6:04. The ballroom breathed in. My father's face changed. Not anger, calculation. He turned to Thomas. We can resolve this privately. Margaret answered before her husband could. No partnership. Effective immediately. Kelsey made a small sound. My mother gripped the back of a chair. Thomas removed his phone from his jacket. Our counsel will contact yours. And Grant, because financing documents cross state lines and tax representations were involved, I strongly suggest you retain a criminal attorney. The word criminal landed harder than any shout could have. My father looked at me then with pure disbelief, as if the wall he had leaned on for years had suddenly stepped aside and let the roof fall. 2 men in dark suits entered from the lobby. They were not police officers. Not yet. One was Ashford's general counsel. The other introduced himself quietly as a retired federal investigator retained for due diligence. He did not make a scene. He simply asked my father not to leave until counsel had preserved documents and devices relevant to Bellwether Landing. My father laughed once. It sounded broken. You think you can hold me here? The investigator's expression did not change. No, sir, but if you leave after being advised of document preservation, it will be included in our report. That was enough. Men like my father fear reports more than fists. Guests began standing. Chairs scraped, clutches snapped shut. Coats were gathered from the backs of seats. Nobody wanted cake. Nobody wanted coffee. Nobody wanted to be photographed inside the collapse. Carter looked at Kelsey. Did you know about the slideshow? Her tears started instantly. It was supposed to be funny. Did you know? She looked toward our mother. That answered him. He removed his wedding ring slowly, not dramatically, just carefully, and placed it beside his untouched champagne. Kelsey stared at it as if it might explain itself. My mother finally faced me. Are you proud of yourself? Her voice shook, but not from remorse, from embarrassment. There is a difference. No, I said. I'm free of you. She flinched. My father leaned close, voice low enough that only I could hear. You have no idea what you've done. I looked at the man who had built a life by making other people afraid of his disappointment. His hair was perfect, his cufflinks were gold, his empire was printed on paper thin enough to tear. I know exactly what I documented. That ended it. Outside, the February air smelled of rain and river mud. Owen waited near my car, holding 2 paper cups of coffee from a gas station across the road. The steam rose between us like a signal. "You okay?" he asked. I looked back at the glowing windows of the Riverbend Club. Inside, my family was learning the cost of public cruelty. Inside, my father was probably calling attorneys. Inside, my sister was staring at a wedding that had become evidence. "No," I said. Then I took the coffee. "But I'm honest. That's better." My phone buzzed before we reached the highway. It was Hannah. "Your grandmother watched the live stream. She said, 'That is my girl. Tell her the red folder looked good under ballroom lights.'" I laughed and cried at the same time, which is not elegant, but freedom rarely is. 3 weeks later, Lillian survived surgery. I visited her at Stillwater Grove on a Tuesday morning that smelled of antiseptic, oatmeal, and the lavender lotion she loved. The hallway floors shone under fluorescent lights. Somewhere, a television played a game show too loudly. She looked smaller in the hospital bed, but her eyes were clear. "You brought the folder?" she asked. "It's in the car." "Good. Never trust a coal man near paper." I laughed until a nurse told us to keep it down. The fallout came in pieces. Ashford Heritage Capital terminated negotiations with Coal Development Group. The county suspended review of Bellwether Landing, pending ownership verification. My father's lender froze the construction line. 2 months later, the North Carolina Department of Revenue opened an inquiry. After that came the IRS letter, then subpoenas, then a settlement that cost him the beach house, the country club membership, and the office with his name carved into limestone. He was not dragged away in handcuffs that night. Real consequences rarely arrive that cleanly. They came by certified mail, by court filing, by calendar notice, by men in suits asking questions my father could not charm away. 14 months after Kelsey's wedding, Grant Cole pleaded guilty to 1 count of wire fraud related to investor documents and agreed to restitution. He received probation, house arrest, and a reputation too damaged to refinance. For him, that was prison. My mother sold jewelry quietly. Her friends stopped inviting her to charity lunches because scandal is contagious among people who think kindness is a brand. Kelsey's marriage was annulled within 6 months. Carter did not hate her. That may have hurt more. He simply said he could not build a life with someone who found humiliation funny until it happened to her. Kelsey called me once. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was 42 seconds long. She cried through most of it. Near the end, she said, "I thought if they loved me more, it meant I was better." I saved the message. I did not call back that day. Forgiveness, I learned, is not a door other people get to kick open because they finally feel bad. Sometimes it is a gate you build slowly, with locks, hinges, and inspection reports. Sometimes it stays closed. My life did not become magically perfect. I still worked late. I still woke some nights with old fear sitting on my chest. I still had moments when a cruel sentence from my mother returned out of nowhere while I was buying tomatoes or measuring a stairwell. Healing is not a montage, but the air around me changed. I finished the courthouse restorations 7 months ahead of the revised schedule. Margaret Ashford attended the reopening and hugged me in front of 200 donors without mentioning the wedding once. Owen became a partner at the firm. Lillian moved into an assisted living apartment 10 minutes from my townhouse, where she kept African violets on the windowsill and criticized my coffee with medical seriousness. As for the land, I did not sell it to developers. I placed a conservation easement on the creek line and donated a narrow public walking path in my grandmother's name. The rest remains mine. Pines, water, 1 old oak, and a small sign that reads, Lillian's Way. Sometimes I stand there at dusk and listen to the creek moving over stones. It sounds like paper being turned gently. It smells of pine needles, wet clay, and the kind of peace no one can grant you because no one else owns it. My family spent 17 years calling me the weak one because I would not fight their way. They mistook quiet for surrender. They mistook documentation for obsession. They mistook my patience for permission. They were wrong. Blood does not make a family. Loyalty does. Respect does. The person who protects your dignity when you are not in the room is more family than the one who shares your last name and sells your pain for applause. I did not ruin my sister's wedding. I only turned on the lights. And when the lights came on, everyone saw what had been there all along. If this story made you think of someone who had to rebuild alone, write your age in the comments and tell me where you are listening from. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about quiet strength, family betrayal, and the kind of justice that arrives with documents, not shouting. And remember this: never let anyone call you difficult just because you finally became impossible to control.